Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what is literally America's oldest cold case. We're going to unpack the chilling historical puzzle of an entire community, men, women, and children just vanishing without a trace. It's a story that's completely baffled historians for over 4 centuries, and by the end of our time together, you'll see exactly why this mystery is still making headlines today.
To really grasp the weight of this, I want you to picture this. You've just survived a grueling, treacherous voyage across the Atlantic Ocean in the 16th century. You expect to walk into your settlement and see your family. You're anticipating the warm welcome of a bustling community. But instead, you step off your ship to find completely empty houses. The streets are dead silent. There's not a single person in sight. No bodies, no signs of a struggle. Just silence. And one single, mysterious word carved into a wooden post. CROATOAN.
It's an incredibly haunting scene, right? Where on earth do 115 people just go? Well, that's the foundation of the enigma we're tackling today. Let's play historical detective, break down the facts, and see if we can uncover exactly how an entire town completely vanished into the North American wilderness.
Part 1. The New World Dream. To figure this out, we've got to rewind to the late 1500s. At the time, England is looking across the globe, seeing Spain getting unbelievably wealthy from its overseas territories and thinking, we need in on that. They were desperate to rival that immense wealth and establish their own foothold in North America. This wasn't just some casual exploration. It was a high-stakes race for national pride and intense economic competition.
This grand ambition comes to a head in 1587. A highly organized group of exactly 115 settlers lands on Roanoke Island, right off the coast of modern-day North Carolina. And this wasn't just a military outpost of rugged soldiers. They deliberately brought men, women, and children. They arrived full of hope, tasked with the massive challenge of building a permanent, thriving English community from absolute scratch.
And nothing symbolizes that ambition quite like a young girl named Virginia Dare. Her birth was a massive historical milestone, literally the very first English child born in the Americas. Having a baby born in the settlement was the ultimate proof of their commitment. This wasn't just an expedition anymore, it was a home.
Moving into Part 2, a desperate plea for help. Because that dream of a new home, it turned into a grim struggle for survival pretty fast. The pristine settlement faced mounting, life-threatening pressures almost immediately. Turns out, carving a civilization out of the wilderness was way harsher than anyone back in England had imagined.
The deck was completely stacked against them. First off, they're severely struggling just to find enough food for 115 people. Add to that some incredibly tense relations with local Native American groups, which added a real layer of physical danger. With supplies shrinking fast and winter always looming, the desperate settlers realize they can't survive alone. So they make a tough call. They practically beg their governor, John White, to sail all the way back to England for a lifeline.
And here's where the timeline gets really tragic. Governor White agrees, and he leaves in August of 1587, totally expecting to be back in a few months with a fully stocked ship. But history threw a massive wrench in those plans. White gets to England right as the country is preparing for war. The Spanish Armada is threatening to invade, meaning every single available English ship is drafted for national defense. Because of this, White is trapped. Months agonizingly bleed into years. The settlers are left entirely alone, and during this dark stretch, the colony just drops off the historical map.
Which brings us to Part 3, the astonishing 1590 discovery. It literally took until 1590, 3 full years after he left his family, for White to finally secure a ship and make that brutal journey back to Roanoke. And what he found is deeply unsettling. It's the core of our mystery.
Can you imagine the psychological shock here? He's expecting to find his family, little Virginia Dare, and a surviving community eagerly waiting for salvation. Instead, he steps into a total ghost town. But notice this specific, crazy detail. The settlement was completely abandoned, but the homes were purposefully dismantled. They weren't destroyed, they weren't burned, they were meticulously taken apart.
And that's the real kicker. Even with 115 missing people, there was absolutely zero evidence of violence. No signs of a chaotic struggle, no bodies left behind. And perhaps most astonishingly, no graves. Whatever happened to these settlers, it didn't leave the traditional scars of a massacre or some sudden devastating plague.
In the sheer emptiness of this dismantled town, there were literally just 2 clues. The word CROATOAN carefully carved into a wooden post, and the letters CROW etched into a nearby tree. That was it.
One deliberate message left by 115 people, but without anyone around to translate it, its true meaning was completely lost to the wind.
So, Part 4, Competing Theories of Roanoke. What actually went down? Let's break down the evidence, because we know from history that entire communities do not just evaporate into thin air. There has to be a logical explanation, and historians have debated this incredibly frustrating puzzle for centuries.
Experts today largely lean on four main theories. First up is assimilation, the idea that the starving settlers peacefully joined a friendly, nearby Native American community to survive. Makes sense, right? Second is disease and famine, suggesting the harsh conditions just quietly wipes the population out. Third is relocation. Maybe they packed up those dismantled houses, tried to move somewhere safer, and tragically perished along the way. And finally, the attack theory, the idea that despite the lack of obvious battle evidence, they were eventually wiped out by a hostile force.
Now, as much as we all love a clean resolution, we've got to be impartial jurors here. The reality is, despite hundreds of years of exhaustive research, absolutely no theory has been definitively proven. Archaeologists are still out there searching through the soil of North Carolina today, but frustratingly, every single new discovery just seems to raise more questions without giving us that final definitive proof we're looking for.
And this hits on a really deeply human reality. And it's exactly why this mystery endures generation after generation. It fundamentally challenges how we understand history. Entire communities do not simply disappear. Yet the Lost Colony of Roanoke seems to have done exactly that. It's this massive historical void that naturally fuels books, films, and endless scientific rabbit holes. We are just instinctively driven to solve the puzzle.
Which leaves us pondering the ultimate historical question. After more than 4 centuries, the clues remain frustratingly limited, and it survives as the absolute oldest unsolved mystery in American history. What really happened to those 115 souls? Will archaeologists ever uncover the truth hidden in the dirt? And honestly, if they had the time to meticulously dismantle their homes, why on earth did they only leave behind a single word? Thanks for exploring this fascinating historical explainer with us today. Keep asking questions and keep analyzing the facts.